If you haven't followed the podcast yet and don't know who I am Chris Wright, the head of Pubs Advisory Service here in the UK. I provide insights into the UK pubs trade, speak with other experts, share experiences and stories from publicans across the country. Along the way, exploring different pubs, how they are run, and speaking with the operators. Podcasts are released weekly, and we are always interested in what our audience has to say about pubs as well. Take note, you can take part as well. So how do you contribute to the Pub SpeakOut Podcast? You can WhatsApp us on 07766 07 3815. Leave your story in the form of a voice message or voice note. 5 mins is approximately the maximum time length. If you're cut off or have a longer story, message back and continue where you left off. Please include as much detail about your experience as possible and avoid recording in noisy places or a moving vehicle. I recommend subscribing to the Pubs Advisory Service. It's the most extensive pub service offering more than just representation. We have online calculators, document banks and other resources for those interested in running a pub business. You can claim all of the costs of subscribing back as a business expense. Some of the WhatsApp content will make it into special episodes of my podcast, exclusive only to subscribers of Pubs Advisory Service. A paid-for subscription gives you early access to episodes, plus online Q&As where I answer listeners' questions about the industry. Hello once again, this is Chris from the Pubs Podcast. Today I'm joined by Mr. Insurance, Joel Kirby of Monopoly. Joel, good to see you. How are you feeling?
Not too bad, Chris. Yourself?
I'm doing well, thank you. And I think we're all catching a bit of sun. So here we are at the tail end of, June. We're in July now. It's actually happened. We've gone over the hump. So the days are getting shorter. What can we say? Joel, you first came to my attention, some years ago. You burst onto the scene. And I say the scene, social media. I mean, let's face it, you were kind of everywhere on Facebook all of a sudden, offering to help pubs with their insurance, which is one of those regular but annoying things that everyone has to do. And you've established yourself probably as, is it fair to say, can I say this? Are you the leading pub insurer in the UK right now?
We probably are the largest insurance broker in the leisure and hospitality industry presently. I don't think that we're going to get knocked off the stance anytime soon, because we quite like our pitch up there.
Well, you're doing extremely well out of it. I mean, to be honest, you seem to have your phone on you 24 hours because I've seen you reply to stuff at all different days of the time of the week and in the middle of the night almost. So fair dues to you. You're very service driven, and that's really how we got to meet. I've been a guest of yours. I will clear the pitch. You invited me up to a couple of events in London. Some were good, some were awful. I seem to recall.
No comment.
No comment, and we won't even say who put on the awful show, but we'll keep that between us. Lovely to see you again, and I wanted to get you on the podcast to talk a bit about insurance. It's not the sexiest of subjects, we can all agree on that. How did you get into it? Why are you in the insurance world even? How did you get here?
It was kind of a mistake, really, which, I suppose all good things start with mistakes. Originally, when I left school, didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was a machine operator at Twining's Tea, making the tea bags.
Love it.
Then kind of got made redundant from them. Didn't really want to work every day of the week because we'd kind of done sort of like an alternate night and day shift pattern. I walked into a job agency and spoke to someone there. Made it quite clear at the age of 18 or 19 that I didn't want to work every day. Then he said, "Oh, well, we've got an insurance job, selling insurance. Do you want to give it a go?" It was quite a well-known company. They are still about, but they've harvested everything off to South Africa now. Basically started my insurance career off in personal lines. So basically just doing car and home insurance. Eventually ended up wanted to spread my wings a little bit, got into commercial insurance. I left there, went to work for another brokerage, done another 2 years there, went and worked for another brokerage, and then eventually in March of 2019 handed my notice in, and Monopoly Insurance started in April 2019.
Wow, you did take the plunge. And then here you are, you started your commercial insurance brokerage. Why pubs? I mean, some personal connection, or you just online and you thought, goodness me, that's a market. What was happening?
The thing is, when I first got into commercial insurance, Facebook wasn't really as big as what, say, for instance, it is now. I mean, I've managed to obtain quite a lot of social media presence. And I always say it's the the wrong way of doing it because everyone recommends me rather than the company, and I really don't want to be the face of the company with this thing. But no, so when originally I started off in commercial insurance, I worked for a very niche insurance broker that mainly done marquees and event insurance. So 6 months of the year you were flat out, 6 months of the year we were kind of sat there playing tic-tac-toe. So I was kind of tasked with going out and insuring something that I could insure all year round, just to kind of keep myself busy, especially during the quiet periods. And seeing as that I was about 21 at the time, I spent most of my time in pubs.
No.
So I got talking to a couple of publicans, managed to get their insurances sorted, and found it relatively enjoyable. And I liked that particular sector because it was kind of combining both my work for insurance and I suppose my love for the pub. So that's effectively how it started. Through I've still got clients now that I've dragged through free brokerages um, to the final home or final resting place, I suppose, which is Monopoly. So yeah.
And you've expanded your services. I mean, I knew you at the start, insurance, I think it was 2020. I think you came to my attention during that pandemic. Everyone was online, different Facebook groups popping up to do with pub issues. And that's where you popped up. I think we first got in touch. But you do more than insurance now. Your company has evolved. You've grown. What have you added on now?
Yeah, so just going back to the um, Facebook part, we kind of our claim to fame or our rise to fame was during the COVID times, which we were probably we were quite a small outfit. There was only three of us back then. We were one of the only brokers that basically never turned our phones off. So even business owners that weren't clients were still coming to us to ask questions about their insurance policy that another broker had arranged because they couldn't get hold of them.
Mm,
Because during COVID, they turned all their phones off, replied to emails in about 2 weeks' time, and it just wasn't the best of sort of services. And I can hand on heart turn around and say that we obtained a lot of respect from that, and the people that weren't clients at the time that we were the shoulder to cry on and giving them advice on their insurance policy, even though we didn't arrange it because they wanted someone to talk to. That went a long way, and we ended up inheriting them as clients.
mm,
But no, the business has expanded. It's not just obviously for the monopoly insurance side of things. It's not just the leisure and hospitality side that we specialise in. It's any sort of SME effectively and property owners, but any sort of general commercial insurance is what we basically do here. And we spent quite a number of years, especially the first sort of 2 years up until the end of sort of 2020, we were very sort of set, or I was very set in our ways of I like pubs and pubs only. Whereas we spent the last few years or last 4 years diversifying into a lot more markets and found a lot more strength that way. We've also bolstered our arsenal here in regards to the amount of staff that we've got, which is now about 25. But no, there's also sort of an off branch to this, which is monopolising, which is
mhm,
obviously what your question teed up to, which is another company of our sister company, I suppose, that is able to do commercial gas and electric utilities as such, merchant services and a few other bits and bobs as well. Kind of the idea behind that, and we don't ram it down our clients' throats because that's not our aim whatsoever, because we're there if we're needed,
mm.
is to basically kind of make it a one-stop shop, but it's also as a comparison as well.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think your love of the pubs really comes through. I mean, your customer service has been terrific. I mean, your engagement with people always comes across. People, you're one of those people in the industry that people do refer to by their first name only. Have you tried Joel? That's often a phrase. And as you said, you would rather they said, "Have you tried Monopoly?" But you are where you are. You're going to have to wear that badge for a little while anyway. But I think, to me, what screams across is the service, the attention to detail, the fact you are there and you have people, ready to speak the language of, those that you're insuring. And it's really helped. I mean, as I say, it's not the hottest of subjects, but it is something everyone has to do. And of course, pubs have, multiple requirements for insurance. They might be holding temporary events. They've obviously got third party liability. They've got their own, obviously, contents and other items that they're having to insure. I mean, insurance went through a bit of a rough ride, as we know, COVID. That's the larger part of the industry, which you're not responsible for, didn't exactly cover itself in glory there. Is there any update to any of those torrid times? Do you know, did people get paid out in the end? Were there any settlements?
There were certain wordings out there that dictated that there were claims that were paid out effectively after the High Court ruling back on the 15th of January 2021. We had two policy wordings out there for the policies that we arranged prior to COVID. The majority stated that there needed to be a notifiable human disease occur at the premises, and the premises, i.e., in isolation, needed to be closed down by a competent authority. Unfortunately, a sort of nationwide or global catastrophe in that respect isn't really covered on an insurance policy because, say, for instance, if there was a power cut in, I don't know, the north, then the insurers wouldn't be able to basically pay out for all of that. There wouldn't be enough money in it. I honestly believe that if every claim did get paid out, the insurance premiums for, say, for instance, a pub, you'd be looking into 5 figures plus because obviously the insurers would have to recoup some of that money. And it was one of them things that no one could ever predict. I mean, you've got some clients out there that believe that their insurance policy should cover them for absolutely everything, and they probably would believe that an alien invasion would be covered should it happen. But I can categorically tell you now that an alien invasion isn't covered under
It's
an
not
insurance
alien
policy.
invasion.
So
Thank you for
yeah.
clarifying. Perfect.
The other policy wording that we had, and there's an interesting story behind this one, was that there needed to be a notifiable human disease within a 25-mile radius of the insured's premises that caused a loss of attraction. So we utilised this when we submitted the claims through to the insurers and basically I said to all the clients, I'm sure that you're within 25 miles of a hospital. Find a local newspaper article that basically says COVID's been found here. This is obviously in 2020 when COVID was rife. Because no authority come out to basically check the surfaces to see if there was COVID at the premises as such. Originally, the claims got knocked back because the loss adjusters worked out the distance from Wuhan market to the client's premises of 6,000 odd miles.
You're kidding.
No, I'm not kidding. And said that it was outside of the 25-mile radius limit.
Oh my goodness.
Subsequently, they all got overturned and had to pay.
Yeah, that's an outrageous imposition on business owners. I mean, my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I mean, these,
So,
these are obviously events which, to large part, I guess, the new wording has made them almost uninsurable going forward. But there are new threats to business. I've suffered myself, some cyber attack, data loss. Are these issues that businesses like pubs should be getting concerned about? There are emerging threats about people losing data. What's your feeling around pubs and covering things like that?
I mean, you have to obviously take necessary precautions. Everyone with an ICO license, which pubs should have ICO licenses anyway, that basically dictates that they hold some sort of information on people. I wouldn't say that pubs hold extremely sensitive information. And like, say, for instance, the likes of Marks and Spencer's, which recently had a cyber attack, and they still don't think that they're going to be online for a number of months. But it's retaining the data and obviously making sure that that's not leaked, because the ICO are kind of they're all to themselves effectively, and they do like to make examples of people, especially when there are GDPR and data breaches. So cyber policies are worthwhile. However, that's a business decision that you need to make yourself because it's not compulsory. Obviously, there is compulsory insurances that we arrange within the package policy for pubs, but because it's a different line of business, effectively, or different risk exposure that falls outside of the commercial combined package policies that we arrange, it would be a separate policy in addition to the main policy that we'd arrange for.
Yeah. And I think there are two things going on there. One of them, as you mentioned, is data loss, which could be personal data, i.e. of customers. So if you're a pub site that you've got lettings rooms, you may have collected data on all your customers that have visited and, the husband, wife name, date of birth, the dog, you name it. But also what about the actual the data of the business, as in their own records, their files that could also have been corrupted in some way, that they can lose access to their back office. Is that separate cover as well? Is that very much, do you feel that's separate to?
It would still fall under cyber. It just depends on the extensions as such, because no two policies are ever the same. So it would need to be reviewed on a case by case basis as to what the risk exposures are,
Mm,
and what the client feels is the best cover for them in order to basically build a policy that's suitable for that exposure.
mm. Yeah, yeah, and to be absolutely fair to you and the work that you do, insurance really serves to insure people against unforeseen events. If it's foreseeable, it's not likely to be covered in any meaningful way. It's the unforeseen that's kind of happening, and I think cyber and cyber attacks kind of straddles this world of I think people are hearing more and more of it. As I say, until it hit me, I was quite lucky. I only lost a very small amount of data, actually a couple of spreadsheets. So to be honest, I was lucky, but I knew some companies who were using the services lost literally everything, all their back office, all their customer data, all their files, all got encrypted, and that was absolutely disastrous. So good backup policies. Making sure if you're holding a lot of data, consider chatting to yourself about that sort of insurance. Is there any other new risks, novel risks that have emerged that you can think of that people should be thinking about?
There is, I suppose, one of the more recent trends is that insurers are getting a lot more hot on flooding. Um, Obviously, we seem to have, well, depends when this is being hosted, but at the moment we're at the start of July, and over the last couple of days has been 30 degrees. But when this podcast goes out, we may be having torrential
Well, they had one in
downpours.
Dover, didn't they, a few weeks ago? Dover and Folkestone, they all got hammered
Yeah.
in the Kent corner. So yeah, go on. Yeah.
So insurers getting a lot more hot on flooding. Um, Insurers obviously subscribe to flood mapping data. They will use their own sort of different data that they pay a ridiculous amount of money for, because an insurer obviously needs to mitigate the exposure from themselves. We are seeing that a lot of pubs that, say, for instance, had flood cover previously, or even now having renewals invited with increased flood excesses, or if they, say, for instance, had an increased flood excess last year, it's now flood exclusion. There is a policy out there on the market. We actually prefer to send our clients direct to them. I can give you the name of that another time because it's off the top of my head. It's either Flash Flood or floodflash.io.
Yeah.
Basically, it's cheaper for the client to go directly to them rather than go through us. So I'm not bothered about that. I'd rather just provide the service. But they have a fantastic. I've seen the stick. I call it stick. So basically, it's a little tube, probably about a meter long.
Yeah.
What you do is you set on your policy the distance as to how much you want
Flood.
to be paid out at what limit.
Oh, okay.
And there's a lot of technology in this tube with SIM cards and tracking stuff and basically pH levels. And what it does is it registers every time that there's water that gets up to a certain height and instantly triggers a payment to you within 48 hours. It's an
Wow.
indemnity policy, but it's for people that don't or can't get flood cover because, like I said, it's getting harder to get. I well recommend exploring that option. They won't cover everyone, but it is also government backed as well.
That's
So it's well
interesting.
worth
I've never
having.
heard of that. So it's a new bit of
No,
technology. It's an actual tube fitted to your building, your premises.
right, they come out, they install it. I think there's like a small little installation charge of like 100 quid or something like that. And obviously, you pay for an insurance policy. Your insurance policy is dictated as to how high the water level is. I think the minimum that is something like 10 centimeters, so it has to flood 10 centimeters before.
Mm.
But you can set it to 20 centimeters, and then you can select your indemnity amount from, I don't know, 10, 15, 20, 25,000. And basically, if you flood that much, you get that indemnity amount. It's an indemnity policy effectively. So it's well worth for those experiencing. They would also cover places that were previously flooded as well.
Yeah.
But like I said, they won't cover everyone. But it's well worth exploring the option for that should you not have flood cover or potentially be in a flood risk area.
Well, that is really useful stuff. In fact, Joel, I'll get the links from you. I'll make sure they go alongside the podcast, or they may even, if you're watching this on YouTube, it'll flash up on the screen so people will know exactly where to go. That's really useful stuff. Never heard of that. On the subject of tech stuff, do people need to be wary, especially covering themselves for things like, the CCTV, people filming footage on the premises? Are there other sorts of tech problems that insurance is trying to resolve or create? I'm thinking of people that have also had to have indemnity cover. I've heard in the past for social media posting that their staff may have put something up online on the Facebook or the TripAdvisor, that resulted in further problems. Are they normally separately arranged as well?
Are you a publican navigating the choppy waters in the UK pub industry, or perhaps you're looking to get into the trade for the first time? The Pubs Advisory Service is here to help. We provide essential advice and support, from licensing and legal queries to tenancy agreements and business growth strategies. Want to unlock exclusive insights, in-depth guides and all our past podcast episodes, including hidden extras? Subscribe to PASS today. Membership gives you unparalleled access to expert advice, ensuring your pub thrives. Visit pubs.expert to learn more and subscribe. Don't miss out. Empower your pub business with Pubs Advisory Service.
So it's very, very hard to prove sort of defamation as such in this country, as you probably well know. So someone leaving a negative review, you can't stop someone from freedom of speech. However, freedom of speech at the moment under this Labour government is somewhat questionable, which you'll agree with. So
another podcast.
Like I said, you can't really stop someone from leaving a negative review as such. It's not something that can kind of be covered.
What about if your staff are in charge of your social media accounts and somebody decides to quit your employment and just leaves an absolute diatribe online? Is that something that's coverable?
I'd probably say no, because they were probably acting under your instruction or under your employment during the time that they went and done that. So, yeah, I suppose it'd probably be a civil case, on which the owner would have to bring up amongst what would hopefully be the ex-employee at the time. But yes, that wouldn't be covered under a general commercial insurance policy, as such.
Well, it's going to keep you agile, all this new emerging technology. I mean, we've obviously got AI breathing down our necks. I've been a strong proponent of using it in lots of different areas. And I imagine yourself, you've come up against it. I don't know, has your office headed off down that route yet? Or are you still sort of back in the original format?
Oh, we haven't got a fax machine here, I can tell you that. We do.
I suppose you know what one is. You don't look old enough.
Oh, well, when we turn the internet on, it does make that little dial tone. No, we do like to be a little bit tech focused. Insurers are using a lot more technology nowadays, especially with AI, because it streamlines things. The unfortunate thing is that AI will make a lot of people jobless. So we prefer to still have the personal touch, which is what we pride ourselves on in regards to the service, which is why I would rather overemploy the number of staff that I actually need here, because I want the phones to be answered within 3 rings, and basically we don't have a customer service department. I know that sounds bad, but you've always got basically an agent that you can talk to. And the reason why we don't have a customer service department is because you'll always deal with the person that you arrange your insurance policy, rather than being passed from pillar to post.
Yeah.
So that's why we do away with the customer service department, because whoever arranged your policy will be able to answer all of your questions, because at the end of the day, the premium that you've paid for entitles you to the answers to them questions. And obviously, if we don't know the answers, we'll obviously go and seek the answers to the questions from the insurers. Because I always say this to clients, no question's a stupid question when it comes to insurance, unless you've worked in the insurance game and done a lifetime there, and you know what the answer is, and you just want confirmation. But I always invite clients to ask questions rather than assume.
Well, it's one of those products, isn't it? You only reach for it when there's trouble. And it's not like people will sit and review these things endlessly and concern themselves with them week to week, month to month. It's once a year, pretty much. That's the standard sort of renewal phase, isn't it?
Yeah, so insurance is one of them really boring, sort of daunting tasks, especially if you're sorting it out for the first time. You want to be speaking to someone that knows what they're on about, um, that's potentially been there and done that. I mean, myself, two of my colleagues, they've all run pubs or licensed trade and licensed businesses. So it's not just a case of us sitting behind the desk and insuring them. We've got the knowledge from behind the bar as well, and obviously quite a lot of knowledge from being customers. So it's more of a 360-degree approach. It's all well and good, and I'll never slag another business off. It's all well and good going on to the online sites and trying to obtain a commercial insurance policy for your pub. It doesn't understand what you need. It's not quite there yet. It's not like your personal lines insurance where you've got your cars and your houses where there's so much actuarial data. Every business is different.
Mm.
And the problem is it's not explained to you in regards to the cover that you require. So you just tick a load of boxes and it'll end up chucking you out an astronomical phone, what we call in the insurance world, phone digit premium, because you don't understand what you've selected. There might be cover that you need that you haven't selected. It hasn't been explained to you. It hasn't got someone working for you, because at the end of the day, we work for our clients. We sit on the fence with the insurers. We work for our clients because effectively we have to answer to the clients. Um, we would rather explain cover, because at the end of the day, if you can learn a little bit about insurance, then we've done our job properly.
Yeah, well, I think it's a really interesting point, and I have said to people in the past when the emergence of these comparison websites first came about, mainly at the sort of the consumer market initially, was that if you buy from doing that kind of search, you're indemnifying yourself. If you go through a broker, the broker's indemnifying you because they've taken on board your wants and needs, the key facts, all the other stuff that you actually need to cover yourself with. So you literally have no comeback if stuff goes wrong if you bought it yourself. That's I think a very fair point to make.
Yeah, I mean, you can go and enter obviously your own details, but I suppose you're your own worst enemy if, say, for instance, you've entered something incorrectly. The Insurance Act, which 2015 basically makes makes it clear that you have to make a fair representation of the risk and not um, pull the wool over the insurer's eyes in order to get terms. So I mean, just use car insurance as an example. If, say, for instance, you had 6 points on your license and you failed to disclose that, and that insurer doesn't write anything with more than 5 points, then theoretically, if there was a claim, the insurers could turn around and void the policy on the basis of non-disclosure because they wouldn't have written it in the first place.
Yeah,
Um, and
sure.
a lot of things nowadays are resulting in um, policies being voided by insurers is undisclosed adverse financial history, which in the pub game is quite common. We've experienced it where we always ask our clients, have you had any adverse financial history, like
What does
liquidation
that
payments?
look like? What does that mean? A CCJ or just a bad credit score or what?
Yeah, there's a bad credit score is not a problem, but
Okay,
because most new businesses start off with a bad credit score anyway, because
sure.
obviously there's no historical data. And say, for instance, if you take the leisure and hospitality trade,
Mm.
because of the failure rate in that particular sector, they always get painted with a bad brush. Adverse financial history effectively is the likes of liquidations, bankruptcies, CCJs, IVAs, CVAs, that sort of thing.
Okay, court ordered, as I like to call it, court ordered arrangements.
Yeah,
Yeah.
effectively. In Scotland have, I think they call it a sheriff's decree or something on them sort of
Mm.
lines, which is the equivalent to our CCJ. Um, Insurers are getting very hot on it because insurers do not like adverse financial history, because years ago one would imagine that the quickest way, if you're a bit cash strapped, shall we say, and the quickest way of getting money is to basically do fraudulent insurance claim. So
Mm.
quite a lot of insurers don't write business if, say, for instance, there's been a liquidation within the last 3 years or over X amount. And the problem is that a lot of clients nowadays are not disclosing. This isn't just us; we see it across the whole industry, because we get people who call us up and say, "My policy's been voided because I didn't disclose this, or I forgot to mention this." But at the end of the day, it is the client's responsibility to make that fair representation, because the insurers, when it comes to voiding your policy, they will unfortunately keep your premium because the policy has engaged,
Yeah.
because they've assigned a loss adjuster, which has obviously come at a cost to them to start looking into this. And one of the first things that they do is basically go through the policy with a fine tooth comb not a fine tooth comb, but they do the outline perimeter checks to make sure that you're being compliant within the policy parameters. Disclosure is correct. Because if you haven't disclosed something, then the insurers, they want to know why you haven't disclosed it, so they give you the opportunity to obviously explain it. But also, if they wouldn't have written it, they are going to end up voiding the policy. And the unfortunate thing is, with a policy voidance, and say, for instance, an undisclosed liquidation, your premium is going to start going up and up. Whereas and the thing is, honesty is always the best policy when it comes to insurance, because you've got to be honest in order to rely on that bit of paper.
Yeah. No,
It's only worth the paper that it's written on in the event of a claim, should you have disclosed all that information correctly.
Absolutely. And I think it's absolutely fair to point out that obviously they're going to do their due diligence, and people should be aware of that. In fact, a case springs to mind from a while back where there was somebody who was running their pub under a limited company. They had arranged all their insurance under the limited company. And then because of sort of post-pandemic COVID issues, they dissolved their limited company and sole traded. And about a month or two into that, they got a letter from their landlord saying, your lease is in breach. Why? Well, you don't have any insurance, because actually they hadn't taken out new insurance cover. They had paid for it under the old limited company, which didn't exist anymore.
So when there is obviously a liquidation, effectively the date of the of entering into liquidation, the policy dies. So there's no cover effectively.
You've got to start again. Yeah.
The unfortunate thing is, with the old adverse financial history side, so the liquidations, obviously quite a lot of businesses from COVID did decide to liquidate, which you can't blame them. There needed to be some sort of phoenixing to keep them afloat, because unfortunately I don't personally believe that the helplines that were available were sufficient enough, especially for sort of like high volume turnover pubs. And I mean, I think that you'll correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was any business with a rateable value of over £51,000 didn't receive any grants whatsoever, apart from, say, for instance, like the
furlough. It came later, in the first wave they were excluded, and then obviously they got something later on. But you're right to say there was a cut-off from government's point of view, and there was an enormous amount of people changing their vehicles. And I don't mean their cars, I just mean their trading vehicle. They were limited, or perhaps they might have been a partnership or some other formation, and then they changed it. Perhaps people came and went. Some people obviously died during COVID, and they didn't update. They haven't notified their insurers. They've not made a change to the policy, and so it's left them exposed. And I think it's fair to say there are people out there today who are thinking of growing their businesses. They've got policy cover in their own names. They're thinking of going limited. Make sure you make all the correct changes, because you don't want to be, sailing without that kind of safety cover. It could be awful.
Yeah. I mean, some insurers are sort of semi-lenient, shall we say. So say, for instance, I don't know, you've got Joel Kirby trading as Joe Blogs, and then Joel Kirby decides to go limited, and I am the sole director and 100% shareholder of that company. Insurers, in the event of a claim, will probably turn around and say, yeah, do you know what? We'll accept that, because it's still the same. It's still the same, effectively, although there's a slight entity change, because it's still me at the arse end of being the director and shareholder. If, say, for instance, you go from a sole trader to a limited company and all of a sudden you've chucked your wife on there, then that's changed the risk completely. Because how you've got to look at it is that if you're insured on your car and it's just you to drive your car, and you want to put your wife on there, you're going to ring your insurance company up and say, I need to add a named driver into my policy. But the risk has changed. Now, quite a lot of insurers, especially if there's been another director added to the policy, will turn around and say, okay, well, it's a completely different entity now. We're going to have to cancel that current policy and replace it with a new one, which is, I suppose, the right way of doing it. Some insurers will take a glance on it and say, right, okay, if it's husband and wife, then what's yours is hers and hers is hers, I suppose. Then they basically change it over. But quite a lot of times it will be a case of it needs to be a new policy because it is a new entity.
Well, let's face it, nobody gets into the pubs trade for the paperwork. Using someone like you, Joel Monopoly, shortcuts that paperwork and removes this uncertainty. Nobody wants to have that level of winging it. And you make a very good case for the fact that people should, come to services like you. You've got the knowledge, you've got, the team there to help people. So if people are thinking of changing their businesses and the way their vehicles and everything else, they should get in touch with you, talk that through. It's sensible. Keep yourself on cover. Absolutely. There's no point in exposing your entire business just for what is an administrative slip up.
Yeah, and I mean, for the sake of an insurance premium as to what that policy would pay out in the event of, say, for instance, a total loss, it's meaningless. Quite a lot of people are rant and rave about how much it is compared to, say, for instance, I don't know, their travel insurance policy where they've nipped over to France and paid £14 for a week and then pay an £800 a year for a pub insurance policy. There's a lot of cover on that pub insurance policy because if someone slips over, well, the key word is negligence, I suppose, but you look at the public products and employers liability part, £5 million for each and every claim. There's no limit to the amount of claims that could come in under that policy. So just under the public liability cover, £10 million for each and every claim, or each and every instance, should I say, actually, for employers liability cover. And obviously, the amount of businesses that trade without employers liability cover is absolutely ridiculous. That's a legal requirement, and
it's gone up, hasn't it? That level of cover has risen in recent years. It used to be like 1 million, for example. Now it's 5.
That's more to do with the public liability. That's not actually a legal requirement, public liability, although you can't buy employers liability cover in isolation. You can in a very rare example.
I think you'll find your alcohol license will probably be in default without insurance. So,
I mean, technically speaking, HSE reserve the right to fine, I believe it's HSE, to fine a business £2,500 per day per employee that they haven't had employers liability cover.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's something to think about.
that's to say, put it this way, I imagine that they'd probably go after you personally as well because it'd be HSE. It's not the difference between make and break, it's the difference between you're never going to earn a penny again in your life.
That's a wipeout, isn't it? So
Yeah.
let's end on a kind of market update. Here we are. We've got right into the rump of 2025. What are you seeing with premiums? Has there been an increase across the board? I got a renewal the other day. It was something personal, but it was a 60% increase on the previous premium. What are you seeing across the board? Modest rises or terrible stuff?
Let's just use your stuff as an example. I imagine that was a personal lines policy. So, say, for instance, like a car or a house. Now, with the cost of living crisis, more and more people are becoming more reliant on their insurance policies because they don't have that rainy day fund kicking around. So, say, for instance, I don't know, if they ding the wing mirror or scratch one of the doors, then they would have had a little bit of cash set to one side. They take it to a body shop themselves. Now they don't have that with the cost of living crisis. Which doesn't seem to get mentioned too much anymore, but I would still agree that we are in a cost of living crisis.
Yep.
And they become reliant on their insurance policies. But that then has a knock-on effect as to the pooling of the insurance premiums, and obviously the insurers need to top that up so that they can meet the claims of their clients, so effectively meet the solvency factor. So like I said, people are becoming more and more reliant on their insurance policies. I mean, just as an example, I have a pub that's just had a insurance claim paid out. I never advise people not to put a claim in. I did advise this time that it's probably not the best idea to put a claim in. It was a window that got smashed. The window to replace was £750. The excess on the policy is £500. The client still wished to proceed with a claim, and the client received their £250, but it's going to be very quick before the insurers get the money back from them due to the increase in premiums because they're likely to look at a 10 to maybe 25% increase. At the moment, in the commercial world, it is a softening market, or I would say that it was a softening market. Renewal premiums, it all depends on the insurers because each insurer has their own sort of underwriting criteria. Some insurers we're seeing 3% increases, which is kind of in line with inflation, some are 10%. We've kind of moved a lot of the business away from the insurers that have sort of dangled the carrot in front of us previously and said, right, our rates are great and fantastic. And then when it comes around to renewal, a bit like in your personal lines example, shoot up by 60% because we don't really want to be having that conversation with our clients saying, yeah, we understand that nothing's changed, but your premium's gone from £2,000 to £4,000. We can't give you a justification as to why. You've had no claims, another year trading under your belt. don't see any more risk exposure. Turnover's still the same, staff numbers still the same. You haven't increased your contents. We can't give you a reason as to why. So we do still carry out a remarketing exercise each year with our renewals team, whereby every policy is looked at by our. We've got 6 people that work on renewals, and basically all they do is sit there all day rebroking all of our existing clients' renewals to obtain the best terms and basically see what the market's at with the insurers that we have access to. So we always put forward the best terms because there might be someone out there. We're not the cheapest, and I would never want to be the cheapest because at the end of the day, our service goes above and beyond. There's another broker out there that will be able to do it £5 cheaper than us, but at the end of the day, they're probably not going to answer the phone in 3 rings, give you the answers that you want, and be there when you need us most.
Well, yeah, and you attend to people, like you're saying, you're doing that behind the scenes as people getting towards the end of their policy cover. So that's all credit to you and the way you're set up. I think it's really important that people, get that from you, Joel, because I've always found, you're available even for me, and I haven't got any insurance with you. So
unfortunately, it got found out that this isn't a 9 to 5 job anymore. It never was in the first place.
No. Well, let's face it, the people that we deal with and support, they are pretty much 24/7 operations, a lot of them. And we take the rough with the smooth, and it'll probably give us grey hair and make us wear glasses, but that's the way it is, isn't it? That's the way it is. Look, Joel, it's been fantastic having you on. I mean, are you going away this year? Have you had your holiday? It's July, or are you just about to break off?
I've already had my holiday so far. So, I'll be office bound for the foreseeable, shall we say?
For the foreseeable. Well, I hope to catch up with you at least some point in the second half of this year. At least have a beer and a natter and a catch up about all things. We share a lot of stories, and very much
definitely.
enjoyed speaking with each other over the years. So I look forward to that. And for now, thanks for coming on the podcast. And if anything crops up that's really out there for the insurance industry, is going to be game changing, and you want to let people know, just come back to me. We'll do a real quick short podcast update, and we can put that out to everyone and just let them know what's happening. So if you're up for that, I'll have you back anytime.
Yeah, that's perfect. And if you need me back on at any time, then just give us a shout.
Thank you, Joel. Thanks for that today. Cheers.
No worries. Take care. Bye-bye.
Hello once again, this is Chris from Pubs Advisory Service. Thanks ever so much for listening to the podcast, and I really hope you enjoyed it. If you want to get in touch with the show, please use WhatsApp. You can contact us on 077 66 07 3815. That is 077 66 07 3815. You'll also find this number in the links and on our webpage, pubs.expert/podcast. Thanks again.